saudara-saudara dan saudari-saudari setanah air. Pada minggu lalu, saya bertemu dengan cikgu lama saya, Haji Amin Syafawi. Cikgu Amin mengajar saya bahasa Melayu semasa saya kecil dulu. Sekarang, cikgu berusia 67 tahun, tetapi masih cergas dan sihat. Beliau kelihatan gembira hadir sama di istana semasa upacara mengangkat sumpah. Saya juga gembira dapat melihat beliau lagi. Kami saling bertanya kabar keluarga masing-masing. Cikgu Amin sudah bersara. Begitu juga istrinya, Cikgu Jamilah Ghazali. Ketiga-tiga anak mereka adalah siswaza dan karyawan dan sudah berumah tangga. Berapa cucu, saya tanya? 4, dia jawab. Anak-anak Cikgu Amin bekerja di beberapa negeri lain. Tetapi kata cikgu, mereka pasti pulang. Di sinilah tanah air mereka. Sudah lebih 40 tahun berlalu sejak saya berguru dengan beliau. Hampir 40 tahun juga negara kita merdeka. Dalam satu generasi, keluarga Cikgu Amin berubah daripada keluarga guru bahasa di Singapura kepada keluarga antarabangsa. Kisah keluarga Cikgu Amin dialami oleh banyak keluarga lain di Singapura. Kemajuan Singapura membolehkan perubahan yang pesat ini. Kita telah mengatasi banyak cabaran dan mengembangkan ekonomi kita. Masyarakat kita kini menjadi lebih terbuka dan matang. Rakyat Singapura membesar dengan pelbagai peluang dan mengembangkan sayap mereka ke luar negeri. Kita bertambah padu sebagai satu bangsa, sama-sama mengalami pahit manis kehidupan. Kita mencapai kemajuan kerana kita mempunyai kepimpinan yang baik, yang berganding bahu dengan masyarakat, yang bersemangat wira. Para anggota Parlimen Melayu dan pemimpin masyarakat telah memainkan peranan mereka dalam mencapai kata sepakat, menyusun keutamaan dan melakukan kerja kemasyarakatan. Hubungan erat antara orang Melayu dan pemerintah, khususnya dengan Encik Goh Chok Tong, telah membantu kita mengatasi isu-isu sukar dan meningkatkan kemajuan masyarakat kita. Satu generasi baru Melayu di Singapura sedang muncul. Saya sempat bertemu ramai di antara mereka di majlis-majlis, sesi jamuan teh dan semasa melawat masjid-masjid. Mereka lebih terpelajar, yakin dan berkebolehan. Mereka termasuk peguam, jurutera, pegawai kanan, pemerintah dan SAF, technician dan jururawat. Ada pula yang cemerlang dalam bidang kerja sosial, seni dan sukan. Mereka aktif dalam arus utama masyarakat. Mereka komited kepada Singapura dan berbangga dengan pencapaian mereka di bawah sistem meritokrasi kita. Mereka adalah contoh teladan yang baik bagi orang Melayu. Mereka berbangga sebagai rakyat Singapura, tidak kira di mana mereka ada. Di majlis-majlis masyarakat, saya lihat generasi baru Melayu ini itu gigih membantu meningkatkan kemajuan masyarakat Melayu dalam bidang pendidikan dan kerjaya dan dalam mengatasi masalah sosial. Dalam sesi dialog mengenai isu-isu sensitif yang peka, Pemimpin masyarakat Melayu mengemukakan pandangan dan rasa prihatin mereka secara aktif. Mereka mahukan masyarakat Melayu yang progresif dan yang bertolak ansur. Di Parlimen, saya dapati tumpuan anggota Parlimen Melayu telah berubah sejak beberapa tahun. Mereka tidak lagi menumpukan perhatian kepada isu-isu Melayu dan Islam saja. Sebaliknya, mereka bertambah aktif membahas isu-isu nasional. Mereka berucap sebagai warga Singapura yang mewakili semua penduduk kawasan undi mereka. Anak kunci bagi kemajuan ini adalah usaha ibu bapa dan masyarakat Melayu dalam pendidikan anak-anak. Usaha mendaki dan badan-badan seperti Jamiah, Bertapis, AMP, 4PM dan PPIS juga telah membantu para pelajar lemah dan keluarga mereka. Dilihat secara keseluruhan, masyarakat Melayu kita telah mencapai kemajuan yang pesat. Ini adalah satu kebanggaan buat diri anda dan juga buat Singapura. Namun, masih ada sekumpulan orang Melayu yang bermasalah. Bilangan penagih dadah telah merosot, tetapi masih banyak berlaku perceraian. Pekerja kurang mahir lebih mudah hilang pendapatan. Malangnya, mereka sukar mendapat pekerjaan yang baru. Mereka perlukan kemahiran baru. Saya sering bertemu mereka dalam sesi bertemu rakyat. Saya bimbangkan kebajikan dan pelajaran anak-anak mereka. Kita mesti bantu anak-anak ini agar generasi seterusnya mempunyai yang lebih baik. Kita perlu galakkan ibu bapa miskin yang berpelajaran rendah untuk memanfaatkan HOPE, yaitu skim pemilikan rumah dan pendidikan. Dengan itu, mereka boleh tumpukan perhatian untuk memberi pendidikan dan peluang terbaik supaya anak-anak mereka berjaya. Anak-anak yang berjaya dapat membantu ibu bapa mereka di hari tua nanti. Pada masa yang sama, kita harus galakkan keluarga Melayu yang lebih berjaya dan yang mampu untuk mempunyai lebih ramai anak. Mereka mempunyai terlalu sedikit anak, sama seperti keluarga Cina dan India. Ini adalah satu masalah nasional yang sukar lagi sensitif, yang menjejas semua kaum di Singapura dan harus sama-sama kita atasi. Saya akan terangkan lebih lanjut apabila berucap dalam bahasa Inggeris kemudian. Orang Melayu adalah bahagian penting masyarakat Singapura. Semasa krisis, anda berganding bahu dengan rakyat Singapura yang lain. Selepas serangan SARS, selepas serangan 11 September, rakyat dan semua kaum tampil dengan tegas mengutuk pengganasan. Apabila kita membongkar jaringan pengganas JI di Singapura, kita hadapi masalah itu dengan tenang dan rasional sebagai satu isu keselamatan, bukan satu isu agama. Semasa Singapura dilanda SARS pada tahun lepas, jururawat Melayu kita bersama-sama menyingsing lengan dengan jururawat Cina dan India. Apabila sebahagian nikel highway runtuh, satu kumpulan DAT dari pasukan pertahanan awam menjalankan gerakan menyelamat yang sukar lagi berbahaya. Pasukan pimpinan Major Kadir Maidin Muhammad bertarung nyawa untuk mencari dan menyelamatkan mangsa yang terperangkap. Saya tukil kata-kata seorang Section Commander DAT, Staff Sergeant Hamdan Tahir. Beliau berkata, saya menonton berita di televisyen dan saya melihat bagaimana mangsa sangat keluarga mangsa sangat-sangat berharap agar orang yang mereka kasihi selamat. Saya sematkan gambaran itu dalam fikiran saya semasa saya bertugas. Apabila wira-wira Singapura ini menerima anugerah Hari Kebangsaan kerana keberanian dan sumbangan cemerlang, saya sendiri, rakan-rakan saya di kabinet dan segala rakyat Singapura dari semua kaum sama-sama akan memberi tabik hormat kepada mereka. Jelas sekali, kita adalah satu bangsa, tidak kira kaum, bahasa, atau agama. Kita harus terus meluaskan ruang persamaan di antara kaum, serta mengukuhkan nilai-nilai dan identiti kesingapuraan kita. Masyarakat Melayu harus turut serta dalam usaha nasional, menyusun semula ekonomi, meningkatkan kemahiran pekerja, dan menambah pekerjaan yang memberi ganjaran lebih baik. Wawasan kita ialah membentuk sebuah masyarakat Melayu yang berjaya, moden, berpandangan jauh, dan menguasai sains dan teknologi. Tetapi pada masa yang sama mengekalkan adat resam dan cara hidup kita. Sebuah masyarakat yang memainkan peranan penuh dalam pembangunan negara dan memberi sumbangan kepada keharmonian serta keutuhan bangsa Singapura. Sebuah masyarakat yang menggunakan sepenuhnya pelbagai peluang yang tersedia di Singapura untuk lebih sejahtera. Dalam tahun-tahun mendatang, saya ingin melihat masyarakat Melayu kita bertambah maju. Saya berusaha meningkatkan kemajuan baik yang telah anda capai sejak merdeka. Dalam hal ini, saya amat menghargai buah fikiran dan saranan anda. Saya yakin anda akan terus bekerja keras dan menghadapi cabaran ini. Saya akan bekerja sama bersama Menteri-Menteri Melayu, anggota Parlimen serta pemimpin masyarakat Melayu untuk mencapai wawasan anda, membina sebuah masyarakat cemerlang. Sekian, terima kasih.各位亲爱的同胞，晚上好。明年新加坡将庆祝40周年国庆。这些年来，我们取得了不少成就，并赢得了其他国家的尊敬。我们刻苦耐劳，举国上下密切合作，所以成功了。我们采纳了各种明智还有远见的政策，使整个国家受惠，并推动我们向前迈进。不过，更重要的是，新加坡人越来越有互相关怀的精神，人民和政府之间也建立了互相信任的关系。这互相信任的关系是在李光耀先生担任总理的时候就开始建立的。他和那一代的新加坡人充满建国的理想和热忱，他们相信我们能够建立一个全民一心、政府和人民同心同德的国家。吴作栋先生加强了这种良好的关系。吴先生以亲切和真诚的态度同人民沟通，他拉近了各民族、各阶层人士的距离，促使大家一起为共同的目标努力。这种一心的精神是我们最宝贵的资产，我们必须保留和发扬这样的精神。当我们分析和处理问题的时候，当然必须讲求逻辑和理智， 这样才可以制定明智可行、对国家有利的政策。不过，我们绝对不可以忘记，任何一项政策都会影响到民生，所以这个不只是头脑的问题，也是心的问题、感觉的问题。政策的问题就是民生的问题。政府必须尽力处理老百姓所关注的问题。许多基层领袖告诉我，我们当前的急务是把经济搞好，制造更多的就业机会，因为这个是降低失业率、帮忙低收入家庭的一个最好的办法。我同意他们的见解，这个是正确的。这就是我们为什么要着手重组经济，使新加坡更具有竞争力，吸引更多的投资。我看我们的策略已经开始奏效了，所以今年可以得到很好的经济增长。但是坦白说，这个只是一个开始，我们还是必须继续努力。我有信心，如果我们继续重组经济的话，新加坡将能够吸引更多投资、更多游客，激发更多人自行创业，让新加坡和这个区域一起增长。我们有这个能力，也有这个信心。我们的政策能为国家带来一个更美好的将来。但是这个是政策方面，对个人来说，经济重组有可能是痛苦的，因为一些人会失去现有的工作，而新的工作也会另外的出现，所以新的工作不一定是马上可以由现有的这一批人可以做得到的。所以我们必须协助这样的工人接受训练，提升他们的技能，寻找他们可以胜任的工作。我们有不少计划，例如政府的津贴、社区组织的援助等等，可以帮助生活出现问题的人。计划不少，需要的援助，如果真正需要的话，肯定是可以拿得到的。但是这个不只是援助的问题，也是自力更生的问题。因为同样重要的是，工人必须提升自己，必须要争取新的工作的机会，要去拼，因为要不然的话，他们将会落伍，失去自尊心，失去他们维持家庭的能力，使他们家庭成员都受到痛苦。我很高兴看到不少年长的工人都掌握了新的技能，成功的转行。不容易，可是做得到。为了表扬这些工人，新加坡劳动力发展局就是 WDA 最近和联合晚报联合举办了英雄棒的竞赛。今年的一位优胜者，我举一个例子，是张连贤女士。她在一家银行担任了督工23年，可是去年被裁退了。裁退之后，她没有放弃，参加了部分时间的护士助理课程。由于她表现杰出，所以全国心脏中心颁给她一份奖学金，让她报读全职的护理课程。现在她也找到了一份很有意义的工作，那就是在心脏中心帮助心脏病的病人。张女士很有决心，很有自立的精神，又肯为社会尽一份的力量。我看这个不容易，不过她能够做得到的，我想不少其他裁退的工人也应该能够做得到。新加坡人关心工作、关心生活费和医药费的问题，因为这些课题直接影响到大家的生计，是逃不过的。有时候生活费上涨是无可避免的，我们是没有办法控制的。 例如说原油价上升，这个是全世界的现象，因此本地汽油价上升，柴油价上升，电费也起了，没有办法。鸡蛋的价钱，鸡的价钱上升，因为马来西亚发生鸡瘟，这也没有办法。可是我听说这几天鸡的价钱又降了，因为没有人要吃鸡饭。所以这些我们没有办法控制的，但是我们所能够控制的问题，我们会一定尽力而为，减轻大家的负担。大家都担心家人或者自己突然发生一场大病，需要接受昂贵的治疗。我们需要改善我们的保健双全计划，让人们更有能力应付高昂的医药费。医药费用提高，这个是科学的进步、医学的进步，我们的要求的提高是不得已的。以前没有这个药，我们接受。现在有了这个药，我们说付不起，老人家可能不需要吧，对不起老人家，所以大家都要最好的药。可是羊毛出在羊身上，谁要付这一笔钱？这个是问题。我们有医药保健计划，所以这个是一个很大的帮忙。我们可以用这个医药保健计划来调整我们的 MediShield， 就是健保双全的计划，给大家更好的保险保障。我看这样我们可以减轻人民的顾虑和担忧。卫生部长许文远，他知道这个是他的责任。第一个大问题需要解决的。可是解决生活费的上涨的长远的方法呢？其实最好的方法是保持一个有劲、有活力、使大家受惠的经济。因为要付得起，首先就必须要有资源，没有钱没有办法谈分享盈余，没有办法谈提高生活水平，所以必须产生这个资源，必须增加我们的增长。这样是我们唯一的办法，使工资上升，帮助人民应付生活费的上涨。同时，这样也是最好的办法，帮忙失业的人士、贫困的人，给他们提供多一些的援助。年长的新加坡人特别注意到生活费和医药费的问题，因为许多年长的新加坡人已经退休了，靠他们的公积金或者养老金过活。我就职演讲的时候，上个星期着重谈年轻人的问题，所以得到不少的回馈说，不要忽略年长一辈新加坡人的问题，因为年长新加坡人也不少。我得到这个讯息了，政府绝对不会忘记他们。其实我们有责任好好照顾他们，因为有了他们，我们才有今天的新加坡，国家才会有今天的成就。他们是我们社会里值得尊敬的成员。政府最近填补年长新加坡人的保健储蓄户口，就是为了帮助他们，希望这么做能够减轻他们的医药负担。如果我们在未来有财政盈余的时候，我会继续想办法跟人民分享，同时分享财政盈余的时候，我也不会忘记提供更多的援助给年纪大的新加坡人、乐龄的新加坡人。我们也会尽一份力量，在政策上做一些调整，让老年人生活过得更自在。比如说，只懂华文的老年人出门行动时，有时感到不大方便，因为公共场所所用的标志很多都是用英文的，也有一些是符号或者号码，但是用华文或者用马来文的比较少，所以大家都觉得可能比较生疏一点。 有时乘地铁的时候，他们更看不懂标志。的确，牛车水和少数的地铁站有一些华文的标志，但是多数的地铁站标志都是用英文的。我问LTA 说有号码，我说固然有号码，可是如果有文字更好。所以他们同意了，这个是技术上的问题，是可以解决的。那我们已经决定在所有的地铁站设置多种语文的标志。我希望这样能够帮助那些不会英语的新加坡人。除了民生问题之外，我们也必须积极保留我们的文化传统。这样一来，我们才能清楚地认识自己的文化、自己的根。对新加坡人来说，要保留文化传统，就必须把握华文、华语。我在华校就读了12年，这12年奠定了我生活观和处事的态度。今天，不论中国大陆或在台湾，我都听得懂当地人说的话，不需要依赖翻译员。在官方会议的时候，当然我们用英语发言，因为我们是新加坡，他们是中国或者是其他国家。但是官方会议之外交流的时候，我们可以直接用华语交流，普通话交流。这样可以增进双方的感情和亲切感，不会有误会，也没有一个间隔的感觉。我们了解他们，他们也了解我们的想法。双语政策将继续是我国教育政策、教育制度的基石。我们必须改进母语的课程和教学的方式。我们不能采用华裔的教学方式。我们应该根据学生的能力和家庭的背景，进行灵活的教学。以前我读书的时候，背书、默写、听写，这个是传统的教学方法。我看这个电脑时代，我们要找新的教学方法，更能够切合学生需求的教学方法。我们需要灵活教学，因为我们要确保每一个学生都有兴趣学习和使用母语，不只是学习学术性的语言，而是学习应用灵活实用的生活上的语言。对学习能力较差的学生，我们必须设定实际的水平。同时，能力强并且有兴趣的学生，我们应该为他们提供更多进修华文的资料，更多机会。我们必须培育一些精通2种文化的人才。教育部将推出一套高水平、充实的课程，以实现这个目标。这个课程所培养的将是有能力掌握英文和华文，同时也了解中华文化和历史的学生。他们应该熟悉古典文学，也应该了解中国的近代史和现代史，以及社会的潮流，不只是学四书五经，并且要了解今天的中国、今天的台湾、今天的香港、今天的世界。这对我国华族文化的传统是非常重要的。此外，这批人才也能够同中国人在同一个思想频道上沟通，因为他们熟悉中国文化典故，因为他们了解中国人的思维。我们不能要求每一个人都能够精通2种语言，这个是不实际的。但是，那一些能够做得到这样的人，肯定会很吃香。我看就业前景肯定是美好的。我们虽然积极保留各民族的传统文化，并且鼓励人民使用华语、母语，但是我们必须记住，我们归根究底是新加坡人。 尽管我们使用的语言是相同的，但是新加坡不是中国，也不是马来西亚、印尼或者印度。我们是主权独立的国家，拥有自己的国家利益和观点。最近我到台湾进行了私人非官司访问，引起了中国的强烈反应。大家看报纸一定知道的，不看报纸可能也知道，因为很响亮。中国人抗议说，我们违背了一个中国的原则。我到台湾访问，当然不是故意要触怒中国，这个不可能是我的目的，因为我们珍惜跟中国的关系。我曾经和中国许多高层的领导人会面过，我很感谢他们的热情的接待，也很重视彼此之间的友谊，很赞赏他们支持两国合作的积极的态度。不过，即使是友好国家，有时候也会发生利益分歧，或对同一个问题选择不尽相同的解决的方法。这个是不得已的，这个是国际政策的一个客观的现实。当两国意见不相同的时候，我们必须冷静地站稳自己的立场。让我说明我为什么有必要去一趟台湾。台湾海峡两岸的危险局势是本区域潜在的最大的安全问题。在目前紧张的局势下，身为总理，我有可能必须做出艰难的判断。我了解中国领导人绝对严肃地看待台独的问题，我也必须亲自了解台湾方面的看法。在我从政的20年中，我认识了许多台湾各界的人士，其中有一些已经成为了泛绿和泛蓝两大阵营的主要领导人。泛绿当然是民进党跟台联党，泛蓝呢当然是国民党跟宋楚瑜的PFP 亲民党。唯有充分的了解两岸领导人的思维，我才能对局势做出不偏不倚的客观的评估，其他国家才会重视我们的观点。这样我们才可以协助避免有关各方对台海局势做出错误的判断。我们不是当事人，但是我们可能有旁观者的优势，可以点出事情的真相来。如果我坐在办公室里看报告或者看电视新闻，没有办法得到这个了解的，也没有人会相信我们的说法的。我们了解一个中国是中国的核心利益。自1965年我们独立建国以来，新加坡就一贯维持一个中国的立场，没有改变，因为这也符合新加坡的切身利益。1990年10月，新加坡跟中国建立了外交关系。当时，中国已经了解了新加坡对台湾的立场，也了解了由于历史的因素，新加坡在台湾有着独特和重要的利益，这个是很清楚的。这种利益对维持新加坡的国家安全，现在仍旧非常重要。因此，我的台湾之行并没有违背或改变我们的一个中国的政策。台湾方面非常清楚、非常了解新加坡的一个中国的政策。他们也知道我们坚决反对台独，我们对台独势力的抬头感到非常担忧。因此，如果说我这一次到台湾的访问助长了台独势力，我看这个是 不符合事实的。我访问台湾之后，我的判断是，台湾海峡的确存在有擦枪走火的危险性，因为海峡两岸人民都是我们的朋友。一旦战争爆发，我们就会面临一个困难的抉择。这是我们非常不愿意看到的局面。不过，如果冲突是由台湾方面所挑起的话，那么新加坡不会支持台湾。新加坡和中国的合作关系向来是建立在平等、相互尊重和互惠互利的基础上。如果我们的合作受到影响，对两国都不利。我访问台湾引起中国的强烈反应，使两国关系受到影响。我对此感到遗憾。我也对台湾媒体渲染和错误报道我在台湾的行程感到遗憾。各种各样的报道都有，他们说张志贤准将跟我偷去，这么大一个人怎么可能偷去？没有可能的。所以你不能够相信你报纸上所看到的一切的话。我不会改变我国的一个中国原则，一个中国的政策。不过我有必要到台湾一行，同当地领导人会面，以便在面对危机时有把握为新加坡做出正确的决定。接下来让我完全转换课题，讨论另外一个重要的问题，那就是生儿育女的问题。过去华族家庭喜欢多子多孙，多数家庭是3代同堂，4代同堂也有。人们对生儿育女的想法，因为时代改变了，想法也改变了，所以子孙满堂已经不是每一个家庭的理想的状态。我们的最头痛的是，现在是婴儿不够的问题。其实这个是老问题，可是状况越来越严重。其实这个也不只是新加坡的问题，其他华族社会也有这个问题。台湾是这样，香港比我们更严重，连中国也有这个问题。我读早报，他们说中国现在有一个现象，中国以前是说只准生一个，无论男女只准生一个。可是现在有些人根本不想生，他们叫做丁克家庭。我以为这个是什么深奥的深字，丁克家庭，原来是英文字 ，DINK，Dual Income No Kids， 丁克家庭。所以，如果中国有这个问题，新加坡有这个问题，真的不稀奇。但是我们必须解决这个问题。我们的华人还是相当传统，我们婴儿的多少跟生肖很有关系。龙年总是好年头。1988年龙年大丰收，5万个龙子龙女。12年后2000年龙年小龙，4万个。去年不是龙年，去年是什么？猴年啊！少得可怜，3万2千个。今年猴年没有增加，也是差不多，不相上下。所以，如果我们让一切顺其自然的话，到2012年的时候，我想这条龙可能缩小成一条小虫，真的不行。我了解年轻人事业心很重，也有很多生活的目标。我们必须设法减轻他们养儿育女的负担。接下来，我会在英语演说中宣布一些措施。总而言之，生儿育女关系到价值观的问题。 我们希望年轻一代重视家庭亲情，疼爱孩子。他们应该是为了享受天伦之乐才养育子女，不是为了得到津贴而多生孩子。但是我们希望有了津贴，希望你们会考虑天伦之乐，这个是最理想的。我们的先辈建设的新加坡，结合了东西方的精华，这里有很多做生意或施展才能的机会。我们常说前人种树，后人粮。我们这一代正享受着上一代人辛勤耕耘的效果。我们也应该继续为自己和为自己的后代种植能够遮阴乘凉的果树。世界正快速的转变，新加坡也是如此。我很荣幸能够在这个时候带领年轻一代的新加坡人，在这个岛国为大家建立一个温馨的家园，为后一代的新加坡人打造美好的将来。谢谢大家。Friends and fellow Singaporeans, I've known Mr. Goh Chok Tong for a very long time, more than 25 years. We first met in 1978. It was not long after he entered politics. We met socially. And I remember he was explaining to me how he was consciously staying away from making speeches on shipping matters because he was from NOL and he wanted to broaden out and talk about other subjects. Soon after I met him, I went away to the US to study. When I was away, I needed to make a presentation on Singapore, Know Your World, and wanted something to show the Americans what Singapore was like. So I asked Mr. and he sent me some slides of activities in Marine Parade, a kite flying competition, something you won't find in America, and it added something to letting the Americans know us. I came back from America after 2 years in the SAF. He was my minister. I would brief him regularly. Then I entered cabinet, and he was a colleague, and then he was a prime minister. When Mr. Goh took over from Mr. Lee Kuan Yew as PM, many people wondered how he would work out. Because Singapore had only one PM ever since it was independent. In fact, ever since before it was independent. What would the new PM be like? Would he be his own man? What mark would he put on Singapore? All this uncertainty was soon dispelled. Chok Tong established his own style, milder, gentler, consultative and inclusive, but firm and clear. He built his own team. He retained key members from his own generation to help with the transition. He brought in new and younger ministers, and he got good men and women to work with him and form a strong team. And I'd just like to mention two of the people who kept on and stayed with him. One is Mr. Dana Balan, who had actually gone into the private sector after the transition was completed and came back in again when I was ill with lymphoma in 1992 and took over from me in MTI and looked after MTI for 1 year, one crucial year, and helped out at a very difficult time. And the other one is Dr. Tony Tan, who also went out after the transition to the private sector, but came back in 1995 because Chok Tong asked him to help run MINDEF for 2 years. And he stayed for 9 years, and now he's staying for another year to help me out with my transition. So I owe them thank you. Chok Tong launched new policies to take Singapore forward. Some policies, like EduSave and MediFund, everybody likes them. Some were difficult but necessary policies. We had to cut the CPF. We had to raise the GST. Not popular, but we had to do it, and Chok Tong sold these policies and persuaded people to do them. Many things were in foreign policy. He traveled, he made friends with foreign leaders, he established contacts, gained their respect, and made use of these links for our advantage. For example, establishing many free trade agreements with important trading partners. And I should mention just one, the US Free Trade Agreement, because that one was born on a golf course. One evening after dinner, he persuaded Bill Clinton to play golf in Bandar Seri Begawan at night, and around over 18 holes, a free trade agreement was born. So that means he's telling me I should play golf. Chok Tong established his own connection with Singaporeans, not high-flown oratory, but sincere, direct, personal. He made people feel comfortable, listened to. He persuaded people to accept tough decisions. He explained highly sensitive issues and diffused them. And so when we had dialogues discussing very difficult things, I was always very comfortable sitting next to him because I knew that no matter how difficult the subject, how awkward the question, how uncomfortable the audience, he would be able, with a soft turn of word, with a joke, with a nice question back, to put the audience at ease and get his point across. And that's why when you see the pictures of me sitting next to him on a dialogue, I'm always smiling. But following him on the National Day rally all by myself here, that's a different show altogether. But Chok Tong won the support of voters and the respect and the affection of Singaporeans and brought us all closer together as one people. And for that, I think we all thank Chok Tong. I owe a personal debt to Goh Chok Tong. I didn't plan to enter politics or to become PM, but he brought me in, he guided me and supported me, and especially over these last 14 years when I was his DPM. And since coming in, politics has engaged all my energies and abilities. It's what they call 24/7 job. There's no running away from it. I've been part of a team dealing with many issues, big and small. And I've learned much from the previous two PMs, especially not just to focus on policies, but on how the policies impact people, the lives of individual Singaporeans. What does it mean? How does it hurt? Where can we help? So I've always paid a lot of attention to my MPS cases, my Meet the People session cases. 9 out of 10 are routine, but always keep my eye open for that last 10th one, where the policy has gone wrong, the implementation is not right, or maybe the policy is wrong and has to be changed, and we have to do something, intervene, and put it right. So I won't tell you which ones, otherwise they'll all come and look for me. But I have red stickers on my table, so when such a case comes, I put a red sticker and I see to it personally. I've learned that not all problems can be solved, but some can and must, and when you do solve one of these, it really gives you a high, and it gives my helpers a high too. It makes my evening worthwhile. And then the next time you come back for the MPS, chuffed up, enthused, energized, and we try again. And when you have a long case, well, we sit patiently and we wait. It's a big step from being DPM to being PM. It's not just working out policies or managing the economy. It's really uniting all Singaporeans, making sure everybody knows and feels that we're on the same venture together, and building our nation and making each generation of Singaporeans feel proud to be Singaporean, proud to carry that pink IC passport wherever we go. It's a unique challenge leading Singapore now, 2004, because Singapore is at a crossroads. It's a different world out there. It's a post-Cold War world. What does that mean? It means there's one hyperpower, the United States. There's no two superpowers. There's not multipolar world. There's one hyperpower. China is rising. India is opening up. Southeast Asia is also growing in transition, but reasonably optimistic overall. And one major reality out there is the war on terrorism, which is going to continue for a long time to come. In Singapore, this is not just a change of the PMs. It's a generational change to the post-independence generation. It's a different generation of Singaporeans, different from the group which fought for independence, different from the group who grew up with independence in the immediate post-independent years, who experienced the transformation, saw how Singapore changed, saw the effort and the passion which went into building Singapore, which went into achieving what we have, and wanted to pick up and run and carry on with the job. Now, there's a new generation, and it's got to take Singapore another step forward, another level higher. To do that, we need a fresh and bold approach. We've been successful, wildly successful. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here today. But we can't stand still, because the world is changing, our people are changing, and so must Singapore, and so must the way we govern Singapore. To succeed, we have to balance between continuity and change. Keeping what is still working and good and strong in our system, which is a lot, and changing the part which is obsolete, discarding the part which is no longer relevant, inventing new pieces, new ideas to deal with new problems and to take advantage of new opportunities, and to develop new strategies to thrive in a different world. We can never afford to be satisfied with the status quo, even if we are still okay, even if our policies are still working. People say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I say, if it ain't broke, better maintain it. Lubricate it, inspect it, replace it, upgrade it, try something better, and make it work better than before. I was a member of Tok Tong's team, and I contributed to many of Tok Tong's policies. So these are sound policies, but we must always be prepared to look at them again. We must never be trapped by what we have, and we must update them and conceive new ideas to go ahead. And this is true not just of the government, but also of Singapore, also of society. The Ministry of Education recently did a survey of CEOs and employers. They wanted to know how the employers looked at the output from our schools, looked at the young generation of people who are coming out from the schools, universities, working. What are their strengths and weaknesses? And they made many observations, but it boiled down basically to one key point, which I think we know at the bottom of our hearts. Sometimes we don't articulate it, and it is this. We are so capable, we are so efficient, we are so comfortable that we stick with what we have tried and tested and found working, and we're reluctant to take risks and to try new things. And that is a weakness. It's a weakness which we have to overcome. And the key to overcoming this is a mindset change. We have to see opportunities rather than challenges in new situations. We have to be less conventional. We must be prepared to venture. And you've got to do this as individuals, we've got to do this as a government, and I think we have to do it as a society. And let me give you some examples of what I mean. As individuals, let me give you a personal example, because this is something which is true of all of us, and me too. One day recently, I was coming to Singapore Changi Airport, arrival hall, immigration counters. SO said, walk through. I said, no, let me queue up and see what it's like. So I came in. There are about 8 counters, right? All passports, all passports, all passports, all passports. The last 2 say Singapore passports only. What shall I do? The all passports counters were all empty. The Singapore passport counters had a long queue. So I looked at this. This doesn't make sense. Why is everybody doing that? They should go across. Then I thought a bit more. I thought, maybe they know something I don't. So I joined them at the Singapore passports counter. I stood there for 30 seconds. I said, this doesn't make sense. Went across, sailed through. The girl smiled at me, beamed, offered me a sweet. So I think the pressure to conform, to go with what we are comfortable with, he's doing it. Let's do the same. It happens to all of us. I think it's something we have to combat. Nobody is there. Let's go there first, see what happens. So that's on the individual level. I'm sure you have examples, but I'll just stick to myself today. As a government, we have to rethink all our problems, big and small. Nothing should ever be set in stone. We've made big changes recently. The GST changes is a big one. The CPF cut was a big one. And now we're working on wage reform. That's another big one, which will take some time. And these will have a significant impact on our future. So we've got to change our policies, or look at our policies. We've got to support entrepreneurs. We've got to support Singaporeans being spontaneous, being unconventional. We should not put obstacles in their way. We should help them to succeed. Let me give you one example. These are the duck and hippo tours. You know what's the duck tour? It's the boat with wheels. You take a ride, you go into the harbor, you sail around, you come back. There are 2 years to get a license. Nearly died. Very difficult, because they went to the LTA. LTA says your duck has a propeller. How can it be a car? They went to the MPA. MPA says your duck has wheels. So ding dong, it took 2 years. Eventually, we sorted out the problem. The ducks became a success. So came the hippo. The hippo is a bus with no top. Okay? So you sit on top, you drive around. It's like in London or one of the other Western cities. Question, is the hippo a bus? A very important question, because if it is not a bus, it is not allowed to stop at a bus stop. So that one we did better. 6 months we solved the problem. I think we have to do better than that. We also need, as a government, to encourage participation and debate. We have opened up over the years. We've got a speaker's corner. We've allowed a lot more discussion. If you read the newspapers, what the newspapers write, the columnists, the forum page writers, the degree of debate is much more than we used to have, or in Parliament. But I think we can go further. So there are 2 things we are going to do. One, for indoor talks, we are going to do away with licensing. Right now, if you are going outdoors or indoors, if you want to talk, you need a public entertainment license. Usually it's approved, it's not a problem, but once in a while, you are slow, or police have reservations, they say no, but it's very rare. So now we've decided we are going to exempt indoor talks from licensing requirements unless they touch on sensitive issues like race and religion. The second thing we are going to do is to open up at the speaker's corner, where you can go and make any speech you like. And we are going to say, well, if you want to go there and have an exhibition, go ahead. Once in a while, Think Center says they want to go to the speaker's corner and they want to plant 100 flowers there. Let 100 flowers bloom. Well, I think go ahead. They want to water the flowers, go ahead. They want to turn the flowers down, go ahead. I mean, free expression as long as you don't get into race and religion and don't start a riot. It's a signal that speak your voice, be heard, take responsibility for your views and opinions. As a society also, we have to be forward-looking. I asked some young people what they would like me to say tonight. And one of them said this: be forward-looking. Don't let elders deter you by saying it cannot be done or scare you with war stories. Maybe I was telling him war stories because I know him. I agree that you shouldn't be scared by our elders, but I think you should listen to them, think carefully what the lessons mean in this new day and age, and then use those lessons to avoid unnecessary mistakes and solve problems our way today. But we have to be prepared to accept the diversity of views and to listen to the debate and to have this discussion, always with a view to moving Singapore forward. Let me give a controversial example. It's quite a controversial one. Some people told me, don't raise it, your first rally speech, very dangerous. But I'm going to do it anyway. It's to do with the casino. We've said no to the casino for a very long time. I've said no to the casino for a very long time. In 1985, we had a recession. I remember the late Mr. Teh Chiang Wan wanted a casino, argued for it. We said no. We didn't proceed. This time round, we had an economic review committee. The subcommittees put up the proposal for a casino. On the ERC, I said no. A majority of the members said no. We didn't recommend it. But the subject didn't die. And we have to reconsider because the argument comes up, the situation changes. Why is the situation different? Because there are cruises to nowhere. More and more cruising to nowhere. Some don't even anchor nowhere. You can go to Batam. I'm told there are 13 down there. I haven't been there, but Wong Kan Seng has been. He told me it was by accident. And Singaporeans go there, so Singaporeans are already doing this, right? Then you want tourists. There are millions of tourists because the Indians have money to spend, the Chinese have money to spend. Every tour group to Singapore goes to Genting. Macau is opening up. Now they've broken the monopoly, new operators, more shows, more games. If we want to grow our tourism traffic and double the number of tourists to Singapore, we don't just want them to come here because of gambling. But if gambling is one of the things they want to do, then maybe we should allow them to do that in Singapore, find some way to do that. And if as a result of that I get over 10 years double the traffic volume, I think we should think about it. So MTI has come with a new proposal, not just casino, but an integrated resort, entertainment center. So you have shows, you have family entertainment, you have food, restaurants, art, all sorts of things. And in the middle, of course, you also have this place. Should we say no? Well, I think we take a deep breath and think about it carefully. I know many Singaporeans have expressed concerns, and very strong concerns, and the religious groups particularly have very strong views. And their objections are not irrelevant. They are valid objections. It's because of these objections that for so long we haven't done this. But I think we shouldn't just say no. I think we should consider, can we have the casino and still contain the social problems? Let's study it. Let's see if there's some way to do it. So I think what we are going to do is to request proposals. Let's put out to say, we are going to impose the following restrictions. Singaporeans below a certain income, you don't go. I mean, if they want to travel all the way to Batam, that's them, but we will not make it easy for people to go broke and ruin their families in Singapore. But if a millionaire wants to bring another millionaire friend from China or India, I don't think I should say no to him. It may help lessen my other taxes. So I think we will find a reasonable restriction, draw a line, call for the proposals, test the market. Let's see what proposals come in. If it makes sense and people think that this is worth doing commercially, we make a judgment, we proceed. If it's not worth it, not worth the downside risk, then we will call it off. We will consider all views before deciding. Finally, if we decide against, then I think we will have had a valuable debate in our society, a valuable discussion, and sent a strong signal that we're prepared to discuss all sorts of things and reopen long-settled issues. But if we decide to proceed, then the final solution which we implement will have to address the valid concerns which Singaporeans have raised. So it's not a black and white. It's looking for an appropriate middle way where we can have our cake and also eat most of it. Increasingly, the world is going to be like that. China opened up. Deng Xiaoping said, when you open the windows, the flies will fly in. So you can't close the windows. You just have to have a fly swatter, a fly trap, have one of these UV lights to zap them. But keep the windows open and keep your interior as clean and as hygienic for your own people as possible. And I think that's the attitude we should have. So with such a framework, with such an approach to our problems, what are our priorities? There are many, but tonight I would like to list just 5 of them. Firstly, external relations, making friends with other countries and protecting our interests overseas. Secondly, building the economy, creating jobs, helping wages and incomes to go up, pressing on with upgrading, looking after those who are affected by this. Thirdly, engaging the new generation. Fourthly, educating, investing in our young, so that they're not just learning to make a living for themselves, but also developing their character and their emotional roots in Singapore, and discovering their strengths and achieving their potential. Not just for a few, but for every child. And also to get them to learn their mother tongues. And the 5th one, I put it last, but I'm sure you won't forget it, has to do with more babies. But let me start with external relations, even though I think for many Singaporeans, the economy is at the top of your minds. One thing which isn't going to change is our approach to external relations. We seek to be friends with all countries, and especially with our immediate neighbors and the major powers. We pursue win-win cooperation with all countries who are willing to cooperate with Singapore. But that doesn't mean that we can always accommodate the views or the positions of other countries. When our vital interests are at stake, we must quietly stand our ground. As Dr. Habibi said, I'm sure you'll remember, Singapore is a little red dot. If we don't defend our interests, who will? This approach has earned us respect internationally and a network of good relations with many countries around the world. From time to time, we are put to the test. As a small country, we can't afford to flinch. When Michael Fay was sentenced to caning for vandalism, Bill Clinton, as president, wrote to our president on his behalf. But we couldn't remit his sentence of caning. All we could do is to reduce 2 strokes. From 6, we went to 4. If this were a Chinese punishment, 50大板 would become 45大板. And people in Asia noted our stand. When PM Mahathir of Malaysia pressured us to change agreements, we stood firmly by our legal rights. We gave a full public explanation of the negotiations with Malaysia, why we were justified in international law and we're prepared to go to any international tribunal. But we still do our best to maintain good relations with the US and with Malaysia, and in fact our relations with these two countries, I think, are good. Our closest neighbors are Indonesia and Malaysia. They will always be of special importance to us. Indonesia is holding its second round of the presidential election soon. Malaysia has a new PM. I've known PM Abdullah Badawi for many years already, and under him, our relations have taken a fresh start. And I look forward to working with PM Abdullah Badawi to strengthen our bilateral relations further. I was very grateful after I was sworn in. The next day he gave me a call to congratulate me and to wish me well. So I said I look forward to working with him. We have broad relations with China for many years. Since the visit of Deng Xiaoping to Singapore, he was then the Vice Premier, which was in 1978. And we want to deepen these relations for the future. Unfortunately, our ties with China are currently under some strain after the Chinese reaction to my recent visit to Taiwan. I've seen letters to the press, Straits Times, also Zhao Bao, also Berita Harian, which show that they understand the government's position. And I'm grateful for the support they've shown the government. But nevertheless, tonight, let me explain why I needed to visit Taiwan, why Singapore is not changing its One China policy, and why I've become more worried about the cross-strait situation after my visit. Why did I visit Taiwan? Because the cross-strait situation is the most serious security problem in the region, the most dangerous problem. Economically, China and Taiwan are getting closer together. They say 500,000 Taiwanese work in China. But politically, the two are drifting apart. China has made it very clear that if Taiwan moves towards independence, China is not going to stand idly by. And war may be inevitable. In this current very tense situation, I will have to make some very difficult judgment calls as PM. I wanted to understand the thinking of my friends and contacts in Taiwan. Some of them are now key leaders on both sides, on the pan-green side and on the pan-blue side. I needed to sense the shifts in the tone and the texture of Taiwanese society. Only then can I make an objective assessment with conviction and knowledge. You've got to talk to people, feel them, sense their mood, the body language, the atmosphere in the society. And I can't get this just by sitting in my office, surfing the internet, reading reports, even secret reports, or reading or watching CNN is not possible, or CNA. You have to be there. If other countries are going to take Singapore's views and assessments of the cross-strait situation seriously, then they've got to view us as informed, impartial, and balanced. If Singapore can help in some way to prevent miscalculations by some key players, then we are going to do our utmost to do so. We are small, we are not influencing the events, but we can provide some inputs to help the key players avoid mistakes and misjudgments. Why did I go in July? Because Chok Tong had told me that the handover would be in August. And so July was the only window for me to go before becoming PM. The Chinese have protested that my visit to Taiwan was contrary to Singapore's One China policy. But Singapore has always observed a One China policy. We took this position right from independence in 1965. In 1971, we voted for PRC's admission into the UN to take its UN seat. In October 1990, we established diplomatic relations with China. By then, China understood Singapore's position on Taiwan, that historic, unique and important interests there, which continue to be vital to our security today. 2 years after we established relations with China, I visited Taiwan in 1992. I was then already DPM. So my recent visit to Taiwan is not my first one under these circumstances, it's my second one. And it doesn't contradict our One China policy. Nor can it be seen as emboldening Taiwan independence elements. This makes no sense because the Taiwanese know full well that we stand for One China and are opposed to Taiwan independence. Indeed, we are very worried by the growth of Taiwan independence forces. Singapore's One China policy will not change. A move by Taiwan towards independence is neither in Singapore's interests nor in the region's interests. If Taiwan goes for independence, Singapore will not recognize it. In fact, no Asian country is going to recognize it, nor will the European countries. China will fight. Win or lose, Taiwan will be devastated. Unfortunately, I met only very few Taiwanese leaders who recognize this reality. The problem is that it's not going to be just Taiwan which is going to be damaged. It will be a grave setback for the whole region. Our hope for China to emerge peacefully and for the region to prosper through investments and trade and tourism will be shattered. In any case, I think it would be the height of absurdity for Singapore to want to quarrel with China over the question of Taiwan, because the cross-strait issue is not a permanent problem. It will be resolved sooner or later. Either sooner, if matters come to a head when Taiwan amends its constitution, or later, eventually, if the situation evolves peacefully over 2 or 3 decades, China continues to grow and Taiwan's economy is progressively integrated into China's economy. The process is inexorable. There can be no other final outcome. I came back from Taiwan more troubled than before I went. Because the ruling party, the DPP, is preoccupied with domestic politics. Their immediate priority is the upcoming legislative yuan elections at the end of the year, 立法院选举. And they are going to go all out to have the pan-green parties win an absolute majority. On the KMT side, they are also preoccupied with domestic politics, with a shooting incident on 19th of March when somebody tried to assassinate President Chen Shui-bian, and also with a recounting of the last presidential election votes. So neither side has had time to think about Taiwan's future, about the longer term, how to manage relations with China, how best to reconcile the aspirations of the Taiwanese people with the realities of their international position. There is a stronger Taiwanese identity emerging. More people are speaking in the Taiwanese dialect, what they call Holloway. 河洛语 is Taiwanese form of Hokkien. Before Li Denghui and Chen Shui-bian became president, most Taiwanese people considered themselves as Chinese. Now, many think of themselves as Taiwanese, not Chinese. Somebody told me, they did a poll. You have a choice. Are you Taiwanese? Are you Taiwanese stroke Chinese? Or are you Chinese? And a majority said, I'm not Chinese, I'm not Taiwanese stroke Chinese, I'm Taiwanese. And the Green leaders, some of them tell me that they believe that the majority of the people of Taiwan support an independent Taiwan now. So that the idea of Taitu has now become a mainstream view in Taiwan society. But the blue leaders questioned this because they said, well, if you say independence is the status quo, yes, people like that. If you say independence is a declaration of independence, that's a different matter. But the reality is the Green side believes that the majority are pro-independence and they may act on it. The media are a freewheeling and parochial lot. They thrive on juicy news and speculation. They chased me around when I was in Taiwan. I said, The代表 asked me what I want to do for breakfast. I said in the old days, I used to go coffee shop, 豆浆油条. He says, no, you cannot go for 豆浆油条. We will bring the 豆浆油条 to you. Because if you go out, you'll be surrounded by paparazzi and you'll be more popular than 5566. So, it's a completely different media milieu. The newspapers cover almost exclusively domestic news. Very little or no reporting of the situation in North Korea, of war against terrorism, or of the war in Iraq, or of the US elections. So I don't sense, therefore, that the Taiwanese people appreciate the international strategic environment. They don't understand how preoccupied the US is with the war in Iraq, how much they want to settle North Korea, how interdependent America and China have already become. Many also don't realize how rapidly China is transforming itself and how major powers in the world are repositioning themselves in response to a rising China. The problem is made worse because they have a rule that if you're a government officer, a political leader, or a civil servant, you cannot visit Taiwan. So the business people know, but the political leaders and the civil servants who are making policy, they can read the reports, but they have not seen firsthand Shanghai, Suzhou, Wuxi, Shenzhen, how China has changed and how Taiwan's position has changed. Many Taiwanese believe that China will not use force on Taiwan, even if it moves towards independence. They are wrong. I visited China in May. I met the top leaders. The cross-straits issue was at the top of their agenda. And China is absolutely serious. For China, the 2008 Olympics is a small matter, but preventing Taiwanese is crucial to China. The Taiwanese press, amongst other misreportings, speculated that I had visited Taiwan in order to play a mediator's role between China and Taiwan. It showed that they didn't understand the situation. It's not just a misreporting. They didn't understand the core situation. Because I'm in no position to play such a role, and I have no desire to do so. And the key thing is they didn't understand that the issue between China and Taiwan is not a misunderstanding which Hao Shiren can come along and jolly both sides and resolve. Then you shake hands like in Everett Road. It's a fundamental and deep contradiction which will require great skill and restraint and wisdom on both sides to resolve and to manage. Therefore, there's a real risk of miscalculation and mishap. If war breaks out across the straits, we will be forced to choose between the two sides. As a friend of both sides, any decision is going to be painful. But if the conflict is provoked by Taiwan, then Singapore cannot support Taiwan. I will not change our one China policy, but I had no choice but to make this visit to Taiwan in order to be confident that I can take the right decision for Singapore in a looming crisis. We value our relations with China. I've met many senior Chinese leaders, most recently in May, and I deeply appreciated their goodwill and friendship and their warm welcome and their readiness to cooperate with Singapore. This cooperation has always been on the basis of equality, mutual benefit, and mutual respect. 平等互惠互利. That's their slogan, and that's ours too. If our cooperation is affected, both sides will lose. I regret that my visit to Taiwan has caused this severe reaction in China, which affected relations. I also regret the way the Taiwanese media chose to play up my private and unofficial visit. This isn't going to time our relations with a major power, major friendly power, are strained. We strive for good relations with all countries, but from time to time issues are going to arise, and Big powers have their own interests and will exercise their influence to get their way. We may be old friends, but when our interests diverge, or even when our approaches to the same problem differ, they have to put their interests first and their approaches first, and so have we. This is the reality of the compelling pressures of international politics and of national interests, and we have to remember this. Let me move on to domestic affairs now and talk about restructuring the economy, which I think for many Singaporeans is the item at the top of your agenda. Our economy is doing well because we have been restructuring it, because we have been taking the painful but necessary steps. And so we have made ourselves competitive. And so this year, we've got 10% growth in the first half and maybe 8-9% for the year. It's because of restructuring, it's not by chance. The challenge for us is how to continue growing. And the answer is, well, we've got to continue to restructure, we've got to continue to upgrade. It's difficult, it's painful, it's tiring. But it's not just Singapore, it's a worldwide trend because of globalization. It's happening everywhere. There's ferocious competition. The developed countries are facing it in America, in Europe. The developing countries are facing it, China, India. We see them as ferocious competitors. They see other Chinamen and other Indians as ferocious competitors. So we are afraid of 1,300 million Chinese, maybe. They are afraid of 1,299 million Chinese too. And the competition is ferocious. So the result is less job security, more need to adapt as the market changes. And overall, if we look at it in broad trends, I think in the developing countries where they've upgraded themselves and got their infrastructure right and their rules right, like the coastal cities in China, like some cities in India, I think that their incomes will rise because they are very cheap now. In the developed countries, in Germany, where they've got too much social welfare and they can't afford it. In America, where the wages are very high and things can be done cheaper overseas, even for programmers, even for skilled workers, even doctors. I think in the developed countries, the incomes are going to fall. So at the bottom it's going to come up, at the top it's going to come down. We are somewhere in between. What happens to us? I think we have to try and push our incomes up. And to do that, we have to restructure, upgrade, improve our productivity, and make our labor markets more flexible so that when the conditions change, when business change, we also can get our companies to alter, to adapt, to get into the new business and get out of the old business so that they can continue to be productive and can continue to make a living for Singaporeans. So we talk about wage reform. It's not just flexible wages, a few more bonuses here and there, MVC, but defining goals for the company, setting goals for the workers, rewarding them according to the goals. It's what people call KPIs, key performance indicators. So you have a key performance indicator, how many boxes you move, or how many chips you make, how low your defect rate is. Getting people motivated to do the right thing so that they will be productive, so that they will align their interests, and they can earn a good living. And that's what we have been trying to do this year. We had a tripartite task force. We had recommendations in January. They've made good progress. Hotels, banks, some other sectors have restructured already. And other companies should also follow, especially the SMEs who find it more difficult. And the economy is picking up. In fact, there's a good time to restructure because then you can build up the buffer of the variable bonus. When the economy is down, the fear is there, but the pain is great. So I think do it now. We also have to raise our productivity, which means workers, but also means restructuring the companies. And I think we can do it. PSA and HDB restructured last year. PSA particularly had a very difficult exercise, but they've done it, and they have done well. They had to drop about 600 workers. They had to slash costs to the bone. They had to retrain their people, cut their prices to their customers so as to lock them in and get them signed on. But they have turned around. The volume is up, profits are up, KPIs have been met, bonuses will be paid, and the customers say there's a new PSA now. Because when there's a problem, the PSA staff will go to the company to ask the company, how can I help you? Rather than wait for the company to come and then say, well, sorry, it's your problem, you look after it. So PSA has changed, and as PSA has done, other companies have to do too. It will not be the last one because many others will be necessary. SIA is one company which is in this category. You know all about SIA also. You've seen what Senior Minister has said, you've seen what SIA unions have said. We know that the unions are discussing this, negotiating with the company, and making good progress, particularly the NTUC affiliates. But let me just add this. It's not just the LCCs which are the problem. It's not just Bangkok Airport which is the problem. It's the problem that SIA's competitors used to be very poor and are now quite good. So SIA's margin used to be very comfortable, but now is much less. If you fly one of the other airlines, you will find that they're not bad at all. But 20 years ago, it was different. I give you one example again. I went to China 20 years ago for the first time. In those days, SIA didn't fly, so I flew a Chinese airline, Singapore to Beijing. It's about 6 hours, quite a long flight. The service was abysmal. We got onto the aeroplane about 11 o'clock. I said, what are we going to eat for lunch? So I saw these boxes coming onto the aeroplane, little white paper boxes, and they passed them down the corridor from passenger to passenger. Each passenger one. That's your tapao. Dim sum inside, cold, greasy, salty, unappetizing, few toothpick